So guys, the anarchy warning issued to the tribunal by President Tinubu is really a wrong statement. Honestly, Nigerians are reacting so badly as regards to this. Nobody wants to hear that from his or her president, not to talk of the giant of Africa. So guys, let me allow you listen to what Ojobe and his team got to say about this reaction. Just take a look at this video.
Trailing the submission by President Bola Tinubu requesting the Election Tribunal to dismiss the petition seeking to nullify his election on the grounds that he did not secure 25% of lawful votes cast in the Federal Capital Territory. The president, in his final written address against the two petitions filed by the candidates of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and his counterpart of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, warned that nullifying the February 25th elections on the grounds that he did not secure 25% of the lawful votes cast in the Federal Capital Territory could lead to absurdity, chaos, anarchy, and alteration of the very intention of the legislature. Tinubu also stated that the two petitions seeking the nullification of his victory are not familiar with the country's electoral laws. Rufai, I'm coming to you, but let me take Carlos' tweet because this is actually the bone of contention, because as you recall, our sister publication This Day put out a tweet, with that statement, and it's garnered more than 2.5 million comments. Well, Carlo wrote, "The president of the largest economy in Africa is telling foreign investors that if the courts, in a legal ruling in his own nation, remove him from office because he failed to meet the conditions set by his nation to become president, there will be anarchy and chaos. In essence, if he is allowed to break the law and remain in office in contravention of the legal rules of his nation against the oath of office he took, there will be no chaos and anarchy." Over to you, Rufai. I'll take, people became lawyers on Twitter yesterday, giving their own different interpretation. Dr. Abati, I heard your interpretation this morning. Rufai.
For me, it is the court, the Presidential Election Tribunal, that will rule on the interpretation of the 25%.
Yes.
Whatever they come out with, for or against, I don't think interpretation of the laws of the country will cause any anarchy.
Absolutely not.
Fanning the embers and everything. I know that statement was from the depositions of his lawyer, President Tinubu's lawyer, Wole Olanipekun, because they are having their final depositions in before they make a judgment on it. It is for him to make his case. You can say he was making his case while he was arguing, but it is the court that will rule, and whatever the court rule, there's not going to be anarchy. I've heard a lot of people argue and said, oh, yes, the court of public opinion and all of that, it reads the body and temperature of the nation. The law is the law. If it rules for or against, the law will reign supreme. And it's not happened before, blah, 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 blah. Those are just conversations. Because it is still the courts that will rule. All we can call on the judiciary to do is to stand tall. Across board. Yes, opinions are divided for and against and all of that. But we need to be able to build a country where the rule of law will stand tall. Because we don't do it for ourselves. We also do it for the way other countries see us. And when they see we have a weak judiciary system, what happens is that investors will not want to come. So the judiciary should also know that they are not only ruling based on the law now, they are also ruling based on what will become the outlook of Nigeria. So they will be the one to determine this 25%. We've never had a time where we've tested it. People can only make other inferences, like, they've cited the part of the constitution that says, treat it as long as though it's this, it's that, and all of that. You can have all the legal jargons. But it is when the court rules, conjunctively or disjunctively, you can look at the narrative. All we should now do is not to heat up the polity. Let us wait for the court to rule. And let's also forget, after the court rules, there's also a Supreme Court there.
Yes, absolutely.
After this judgment, let us remember the fact that Nigeria will continue to exist. And Nigeria will continue to grow. But the question is, how do we see ourselves after things like this? That's what matters the most.
Yes.
And in building a country, it is a collective work.
Right.
Albeit the British coupled this country together in 1914. They started the process in 1906 after coupling the Lagos colony and the Southern Protectorate. And 1914 they add the Northern Protectorate to it. You can say all of that, but the truth has to be said. Nigeria will continue to move.
Absolutely.
After this judgment, after the consequence of this judgment.
Yeah.
But all we should do is try as much as possible to deepen the rule of law and make fairness and justice be the order of the day. The court will rule based on the evidence in front of it, and it's already making its decisions. When it makes it, Nigerians will know.
All right, Dr. Bata, I'd like your interpretation again in terms of what Tinubu's counsel wrote in that final submission. I understand that, anarchy can be interpreted in different ways, but I'll just take one more tweet of people that were trying to clarify Tinubu's win. This is from Pastor Okezie, who wrote, Tinubu got 25% in 29 out of the 36 states and FCT. Atiku got 25% in 21 out of the 36 states and FCT. Peter Obi got 25% in 17 out of the 36 states and FCT. Nigeria has 37 subnational entities, 36 states and FCT. Only President Bola Tinubu met this constitutional requirement, 24 out of 36 states and FCT, and having the highest number of votes cast. He was declared winner and returned elected by the constitutional body, aka INEC. What is difficult to understand here? Dr. Abati.
Okay, a number of clarifications. I think people must refrain from reading headlines and from headlines jumping into conclusions. It misleads a lot of people. Because you see a headline in the newspaper, you see chaos, you see anarchy, you just conclude and you start talking. Courts of law don't take their decisions on the basis of public opinion.
You're right.
Even if the judges themselves are members of citizens. They act on the basis of jurisdiction and the rule of law. And at the highest level, the Supreme Court has its own original jurisdiction. And the courts exist also as modulators, as stabilizing forces, even as they discharge their functions under the Constitution. That's number two. Number three is that, the principle in law is that you must hear the arguments from all parties to a matter. In this particular case, you have the PDP going to court with Waziri Atiku Abubakar. You have the Labour Party going to court with Mr. Peter Obi. And if we just collapse what they were asking for, they're saying that Section 134(2)(b) must be read to mean the reference to the Federal Capital Territory means that whoever will become president must score 25% in the Federal Capital Territory. And that Tinubu, having not obtained up to 25%, is not qualified to be president. Now, he got 19% in the Federal Capital Territory. Two, they said the matter in the U.S. District Court, that he had been indicted or convicted, whatever, and because of that, he should be disqualified. Three, one of the issues they raised was about Shetima, his running mate, who they said was a dual candidate, having, been chosen as a senatorial candidate in his home state of Borno. Those were the basic three issues. So they gave their, they filed their defense. They called their witnesses, total of 14 in law. And the court gave counsel to Tinubu and the APC to submit their written address within 10 days. And that's precisely what, Wole Olanipekun, who is lead counsel to the APC and Tinubu group, did. And he just took all those issues raised by, the two major, the petitioners, one by one, and he debunked them. I tried to give a summary earlier on. He said, for example, Section 134(2)(b), cannot be read disjunctively, that it must be read conjunctively. Because to do otherwise is to misinterpret and misrepresent the intention of the framers of the Constitution. A basic principle is, what is the intention of the lawmaker, the framers of the law? What do they intend to say? It's for the court to decide on that. And Olanipekun said, provided his own defense, citing Section 3.1, which lists 36 states, Section 299, which recognizes the Federal Capital Territory as if it is a 37th state, and also Section 66 of the Electoral Act. And he said, a community reading, that is what it is called, a community reading of all these provisions will prove the point that you cannot say because somebody lost in, didn't get 25% in FCT, then he cannot be president. And he provided precedents. The law, precedents, stare decisis is called. It's a major issue in law. Awolowo versus Shagari. Buhari's case, Abraham Adesanya versus, he gave all of that. Number two, he said the case of the petitioners is based on IREV and BVAS, electronic transmission. He said no, that can't stand, because in any case, the law, provides for manual transmission, and that you cannot say because of electronic transmission is an issue. Number three, he says the case that they are referring to in the US, that the evidence that is provided is inadmissible because it's not, documented within our own jurisdiction, and that in any case, nowhere in that ruling is the word fine used. So he took on all of these issues, and then concluded that the application, the petitions, amount to a crass abuse of court process, and that it should be dismissed, it should be disregarded, and that in any case he is confident that the job of the court, right, is to ensure peace, not to cause chaos, not to cause anarchy, and that given precedents that he has cited and all of that, it will amount to causing chaos and anarchy. But people have taken that in a literal sense.
Yeah, so he
to mean
basically said,
a threat,
right.
but it's not a threat.
Right.
So people should go to the written address and read it and understand the context, instead of just saying, oh, Tinubu wants to cause chaos, he wants to cause anarchy.
So basically,
that's not what is
the
in
job of the judiciary is not to cause anarchy, correct? That's really the bottom line.
Yeah, not to add more tension to the environment. And Olanekwe said, you need to see the context in which you use that phrase. And I don't agree with those people who think that it's a threat. A council, before the court of law, cannot go in front of their lordships and threaten them. That is unacceptable.
Well, all right. Well, in another development, the Senate has clarified the $800 million World Bank post-petrol subsidy removal facility was not a loan, but an assistance from the multilateral institution to help vulnerable Nigerians who are currently finding it difficult due to the challenges that came with the petrol subsidy removal. The clarification from the government came just as human rights lawyer Femi Falana described as callous and insensitive the decision of members of the National Assembly to provide 110 billion naira for themselves in the 2023 Supplementary Appropriation Bill. The Red Chamber also stated that the data from the disbursement of 8,000 naira to 12 million poor families for 6 months was thoroughly scrutinized before it gave approval to President Bola Tinubu's administration to access the facility. Well, in the meantime, a spokesperson for the Senate says no member of the National Assembly will receive any money from the 70 billion naira budgeted to support their working conditions. The Senate says the fund is for purchase of furniture and to carry out repairs in lawmakers' offices. Ayo, I'm coming to you on the story because the clarification for me is not clear.
Yes.
And I'd like to ask you if we have been hearing about this $800 million loan facility from the World Bank. We've known that it is a loan. So what is this clarification? I really don't understand where that is. There needs to be more clarification on this. But I think really the bone of contention also is that 70 billion naira that was allocated to lawmakers for what? Buying furniture,
yes,
and repairing their furniture. They're saying that the money is not going to go into
the new lawmakers.
This is I think that's even worse for me, because I saw a story in Borno State that the governor, Babagana Zulum, had gone into a general hospital in Gwaza in his state and found that there was no electricity in that hospital. Now that provision, that breakdown, was there any palliative for these types of... this is what we need. This is a palliative that we need in the hospital. We need generators. We need all of that. Not furniture for lawmakers, for crying out loud. Ayo.
Thank you very much for linking those stories together. By the way, 4 weeks ago as well, the Sokoto State Governor, Governor Aliyu, had also gone on a visit to the hospitals disguised. The same thing Governor Zulum did, and found the same state, no power, misappropriation of funds, horrible and despicable state of the hospital, and this was, he said he would look into it. We haven't heard anything yet in terms of what he's done. But let's go back to the story with regards to this the mystery of the $800 million from the World Bank. Is it a loan? Is it a facility to help? And if it's a facility to help, and by the way, this explanation was important because of the fact that they were criticized for how expeditiously they had passed passed it in the House. And they said, oh, the reason was because it was not a loan, so Nigeria wasn't going to be plunged into further debt. It was money that had been earmarked to support the removal of subsidy in Nigeria, hence why it was passed. However, they say that there's no free money even in Freetown. I would like to ask the lawmakers to give us details in terms of were there any conditions to this facility that was given to Nigerians, or is it is it money that was given with no strings attached? We need to be clear, because unfortunately this clarification has even brought up even more questions. We know how the World Bank operates. They are not a charity organization. They often don't go, yes, they might give to further causes like gender parity and the likes, but in terms of bailing countries out, it'd be important to understand so that we're clear that is this a loan or is this just goodwill? Then the other part in terms of the money, 70 billion naira, you said it. In terms of the 8,000 naira, look at that side by side, the money allocated to poor Nigerians, 12 million families, and that is out of, saying it will reach up to 60 million people. That is still shortage of the 133 million Nigerians who are said to be living in multidimensional poverty. Beyond that, you're sharing 70 billion naira to the National Assembly to support the working conditions. They haven't started work yet, at least the 10th National Assembly, in terms of fully said work, and they're getting this largesse of 70 billion naira. It begs to question, because it is not reflective of the state of the nation.
Absolutely
and
not.
That's what people criticize again and again the government for. We're talking about a cut in cost of governance. We need to tighten our belt, but it seems that it's only the people who have to tighten their belt, whilst the National Assembly, members of the House, it's business as usual. It's not business as usual. We're saying that things are hard, things are difficult, and therefore they ought to also tighten their belt. Like you mentioned, great recommendation. Let that money, I hope the House of Assembly members themselves morally would speak out against this and say they want to donate the money that is meant to come to them for repairs to hospitals like the ones in Sokoto, like the ones in Borno State, to improve their lot.
Exactly. Well said, Ayo. We don't have enough time for the next story, so I'd like your contribution on both.
No, just a brief clarification.
Okay.
One, the World Bank country director, Dr. Shaduri, last year, or was it this year, made it clear that it is a loan.
I've never heard of
the $800 million from the World Bank is a loan.
I mean,
it was approved by the World Bank Board in 2021, in December 2021. It was the Buhari government that applied for it to, provide social safety net, social intervention for Nigerians. And they were specific. This $800 million at that time was meant for this same cash transfer to Nigerian households.
Absolutely.
The World Bank has made it very clear. So, I don't know, this is why people laugh at us.
I've never heard of anything like
senator who speaks for the Senate, he doesn't even know what is going on. Just advertising ignorance. How do these kind of characters get a chance to speak for anybody in any important forum? And when you take money, you will pay. Zainab Ahmed, the former Minister of Finance, has made it clear that the World Bank is going to give this money in tranches. In fact, the Buhari administration was planning to write to the Senate for approval, but they held onto it. And that is why it is this Tinubu administration that has not gone ahead to apply to the Senate for its own approval. And I keep telling people, this money, the senators approving it, they have borrowed the money on behalf of all of us. So, and we are the ones who will pay it back.
I want to take Rufai's comment so we can end the show quickly.
You can see how our senators lie to us. Oji, that thing is as a loan gets, it's a loan. See, it's at interest rates 2.5% for 30 years. That $800 million is at interest rates 2.5% for 30 years. The interest rate was quite low, very concessionary loan, but for 30 years, payment regime at 2.5%. So it's a loan. They should stop deceiving and lying to us.
And we have to pay back. Well,
I think it's high time Nigerian politicians learn to speak the truth. I think it is high time Nigerian politicians learn to speak the truth, stand for the truth, defend the truth. Let it just be about, doing the right thing in our political system. We are just waiting for that time to come. And that is why Peter Obi said he's coming to destroy the structure of criminality. Let me know what you think about this. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thank you.